My landlord marched into that courtroom, clutching a tablet stuffed with fake evidence and a smug little smile, certain she was about to destroy me in front of the judge. 4 months earlier, I walked into my rented house after a long shift and froze. My landlord, Mrs. Voss, was standing in my bedroom, digging through my closet, throwing my clothes on the floor like she owned my life. This was the 5th time. I'd only lived there 3 weeks. She'd already rearranged my furniture once, gone through my mail twice, and left my front door hanging wide open for anyone to stroll inside while I was at work. Every single time, there was an excuse. Every single time, an apology that meant nothing. "What are you doing?" I asked. She didn't even glance up. "Checking for unauthorized storage." I told her she needed 24 hours notice before entering. It was written in the lease. She laughed in my face. "This is my property. I don't need permission." She just kept talking like I was the one out of line. That night, I finally put my foot down. I guided her out and texted her a photo of the lease clause. She replied fast, "I'm sorry. You're right. This won't happen again." A full week of peace followed. Then, 7 days later, I came home from work, and my key wouldn't turn. The lock had been changed. I walked around back and saw everything I owned sitting on the curb. My TV, my clothes and trash bags, my dishes. My phone buzzed. "I'm keeping your deposit for early termination. You have 1 hour to remove your things." I stood on the sidewalk staring at everything I owned, stacked like garbage, and I couldn't breathe. Neighbors peeked through their curtains. Nobody came outside. My brother let me crash at his place that night, and I lay awake on his couch replaying every warning sign I'd ignored. The next morning, I called a lawyer. He read through my texts, my photos, the timestamps on everything. "This is an illegal eviction," he said. "No notice, no court order, nothing. We're suing for $5,000. The moment we filed, Mrs. Voss started texting threats, one after another, faster than I could read them. "You have no idea who you're dealing with. I'll bury you in court. Drop this now or you'll be sorry. I've done this before, and I always win." I spent 2 weeks gathering every text, every photo, every record I had. I walked into that courthouse sure I had a slam dunk case. Then I saw her. Mrs. Voss stood beside her lawyer, holding a thick leather folder like a trophy. Her lawyer walked straight to us, smiling. "We filed a countersuit this morning. Your client owes my client $7,000 in damages." My lawyer's face went white as he flipped through the papers. "She's claiming you put dozens of holes in the walls. She says she has video evidence." I stared at him. "That's impossible." I barely unpacked. Mrs. Voss watched us panic from across the hallway, practically glowing. Inside the courtroom, my lawyer presented my case first, the illegal eviction, the photos of my belongings dumped on the street. The judge took notes, nodding slowly. Then, Mrs. Voss's lawyer stood and pulled out his tablet. "Your Honor, my client has video proof of extensive property damage." He held the screen up. Mrs. Voss stood beside him, arms crossed, radiating confidence. The judge studied the footage for a long moment, and his face began to change. He was frowning. "Where exactly is this damage?" he asked. "I don't see any holes in these walls." Mrs. Voss leaned forward eagerly. "The holes are hidden behind the posters, Your Honor." The tenant covered them up. The judge squinted harder at the screen. "The holes are behind the posters." "Yes, Your Honor. I didn't want to disturb his privacy by moving them, but they're there." The judge set the tablet down slowly. "When exactly was this video recorded?" "While the tenant was still living there, Your Honor." A long, heavy pause stretched through the courtroom. The judge leaned back in his chair, folded his hands, and looked directly at Mrs. Voss. "You just told this court you respect your tenant's privacy, so I have to ask you something very simple." Mrs. Voss's confident little smile started to falter. She glanced at her lawyer. He wouldn't look at her. The judge's voice stayed calm, almost gentle, which somehow made it worse. "Did you enter that bedroom and film that video with the tenant's permission? Yes or no?" The entire courtroom went silent. My lawyer sat frozen beside me, pen hovering over his legal pad. Mrs. Voss's mouth opened. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the leather folder until her knuckles went pale. She looked at the judge. She looked at her lawyer. She looked back at the judge. And she said nothing at all. Full story on the channel linked below.